Right, so families and loved ones of Israeli hostages being held by Hamas in Gaza for the past 7 weeks remain on tenterhooks this morning. Hamas has said it would release some captives under an exchange agreement with Israel, but Israel now says that this will not happen until tomorrow at the very earliest.
Well, it's not clear what has caused the delay. 50 captives are to be freed from Gaza in exchange for 150 imprisoned Palestinian women and minors, as well as a pause in fighting and desperately needed humanitarian aid, fuel and medical supplies. Well, joining us now is human rights lawyer and international law professor Eugene Kontorovich. Eugene, good morning. We were expecting the first hostages to be released at around 10 a.m. this morning, but now we're being told that won't happen until tomorrow at the earliest. What are you hearing in Israel?
I think nobody's surprised that Hamas is going to try to hold up this process, stretch out this process, and engage in every kind of emotional blackmail and upset, because that's the point of what they're doing. And they're trying to show that they're in the driver's seat, they're in charge, and they're setting the pace.
So it's Hamas who have delayed proceedings?
Yeah, Israel obviously wants to receive, these captive babies, these women back, but Hamas is not providing adequate information. Israel has to make sure they're getting the right people back. So this is a big surprise, but I think there's going to be a lot of bumps on the road.
Eugene, welcome back to Talk Today. Always good to have you on, my friend. As I said yesterday, and I make no apology for this, the problem with this whole hostage sort of agreement, this pause, it's desperately what's needed. It's not even the optics, it's what every side wants. I heard, after I left the show yesterday, I read so much about it. Obviously, pressure to get the hostages home from Israel, taken in that terrorist attack. 240 of them. But there were people inside Israel pushing for this. Absolutely. Netanyahu comes to the table. There are others that say, we're getting 50 and we're giving 150 back. How does that look? Does that mean that we are, in effect, not negotiating with terrorists? Well, yes, that. And are we giving too much away? So it becomes... And in the midst of all of this, the ups and downs, and I think of the hostages, I also think of the parents, that guy specifically, and everybody waiting. Do you think this is sadly going to become a game in which hostages are nothing more than pawns in political posturing?
I don't think they're pawns in political posturing, but I think they're pawns in the manipulations of Hamas, and Israel is put in a difficult and impossible dilemma. There are no good choices here. Israel wants to save these innocent children. Some of them were born in Hamas captivity. There was a pregnant woman taken who gave birth in a Hamas dungeon, if you can imagine. Israel badly wants to get them back. But at the same time, these kind of negotiations are exactly what Hamas wants, not just because of the terrorists who are being released. These so-called women and children, these are not people who Israel abducted from their homes like Hamas did. These are people who were arrested in attempted suicide attacks, stabbings, shootings, rock throwing, attempting to kill other people, and they're presumably going to go back to trying to kill innocent Jews. So Israel has an impossible dilemma, but the way I'll put it this way, just to show you what a hard choice this is, imagine after D-Day, after the Allies had landed in France, if Hitler said, I will release 1,000 people a week from the concentration camps if you stop advancing.
But that is, I completely get that, and that's really the reason for my question, however long-winded. Netanyahu has said he'll do this deal. Yes, there's a delay. Has that pressure come from the Israeli people? Because there will be many Jewish people that will look at that and go, hold on a minute, we are negotiating with terrorists who came into our kibbutz and took our children and our women and our men from nowhere. It started there. I'm not talking about the rest of it. Is he then looking weak by going to the table with Hamas?
I think there's definitely that danger. I think this definitely gives Hamas part of what it wants. And much more important for Hamas than the terrorists that are being released is the pause in the fighting, because Israel is on its way to eliminating Hamas. And I think ultimately how Israelis are going to evaluate this deal is whether that war continues. There's going to be diplomatic pressure from the West that wants all of this to go away, to indefinitely extend this truce. Hamas is going to try to drizzle out hostage after hostage slowly to try to make this indefinite and allow them to regroup. If, after getting these hostages, Israel does, as Prime Minister Netanyahu says, resumes the war and goes to finish and remove Hamas from power, then I think this is going to be just a little bump in the road. if it allows Hamas to succeed in its objective and stopping the Israeli offensive, letting them essentially get away with these attacks, that would, of course, be a disaster.
And what about the future for Palestinians in Gaza, Eugene? When does this war end? You say the elimination of Hamas. What happens next?
So I think asking Israel or expecting Israel to have a concrete plan for what happens next is kind of like asking the US to have a plan for post-war Japan a month after Pearl Harbor. But I think some basic principles are clear. Hamas cannot be in power. Fatah, which is the party that rules the West Bank, they cannot be in power either, because Fatah members participated in October 7th. And ever since then, Fatah has glorified October 7th, praised it. So they are, at best, less successful junior varsity Hamas. And we see the only time such attacks have not happened is when Israel had security control of the area before Israel left in 2005. And whatever government is established for the Palestinians, and they need a government, they should have a government, Israel is going to have to maintain security control of this area, at least for the indefinite future.
Well, Eugene Kontorovich, thank you so much for
joining us
this morning.